ever feel like you're standing on the edge of like a gold rush?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like to me when I look at the GCC consulting market right now.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. And, you share this fascinating report on DBU Group, a company that's really looking to make their mark in this booming landscape. So let's dive in. Let's see what they're up against.
Yeah, and it's not just any gold rush. It's being driven by the GCC's really ambitious vision for the future, Think economic diversification.
Right.
Mega projects like Saudi Vision 2030 and just a huge appetite for all the latest tech.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not talking small change here, right?
No.
This market is projected to hit a cool $8 billion
Wow.
by 2026. So what's driving this growth? What are those like key trends that DBU Group really needs to understand to succeed?
Well, one of the biggest trends, I think, is this massive shift away from oil dependence. GCC countries are now pouring resources into sectors like tourism, renewable energy, and infrastructure.
Makes sense.
And, they need guidance, and that's where consulting comes in.
Yeah, it's like a whole new world is opening up.
Yeah.
And they need expert navigators to chart the course,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But what about the tech side of things? Because this report mentions AI as like a major factor.
Yeah, AI is absolutely key. The GCC is embracing AI, at an incredible pace, creating this huge demand for consultancies that are offering, AI-driven solutions, using machine learning for market predictions,
Right.
crafting, really slick, citizen-centric digital platforms,
Okay.
or even applying agile development methodologies.
This is not just about having the tech skills, but knowing how to tailor them to these very specific markets.
Exactly. And in a market this crowded, standing out is crucial.
Right.
And this report actually highlights a really fascinating point, simply offering excellent service
Just isn't enough.
just isn't enough anymore. Right.
Clients now expect that as a baseline,
Yeah, that's the starting point.
the starting point.
So how does a consulting firm make a splash in an environment like that? What's the secret sauce?
I think the secret sauce is strategic branding.
Okay.
That's the name of the game. GCC companies are realizing that they need a strong, distinctive brand to compete, especially in cutting-edge sectors like fintech and sustainable infrastructure.
So it's not just about delivering a strategy on a PowerPoint slide.
Not at all.
Oh.
They need consultancies that can bring those strategies to life.
Right.
Think compelling storytelling
Okay.
and creative execution that, truly captures the essence of the brand.
Okay, so we've got this booming market, this hunger for AI, and this need for standout branding.
Yeah.
Now, where does DBU Group fit into this picture? They're clearly aiming high, but what's the competitive landscape that they're facing?
Well, this report breaks down the competition into three main categories. First, you've got the global giants, right?
Companies like Accenture and BCG,
Sure.
they have vast resources and experience, but they also come with those, hefty price tags.
Okay.
And sometimes they lack that all-important local touch.
I can see how that would be a disadvantage, right?
Yeah.
Really need to understand the culture,
You have to.
the nuances to really connect with clients in the GCC.
Absolutely. Then you've got the regional powerhouses, right?
Okay.
These firms have a strong foothold in certain sectors like energy and public policy,
Sure.
but they're often perceived as lagging behind in areas like creative and digital services.
So there's a potential opening there for a company like DBU, especially given their focus on branding and technology.
Exactly. And lastly, we have the boutique firms.
Okay.
These are your agile specialists,
That's right.
often offering niche AI solutions, and flexible models.
Got it.
However, they may struggle to provide those comprehensive end-to-end solutions
Yeah.
that many larger clients require.
Okay, so the stage is set. We've got the giants, we've got the regional players, and we've got the agile specialists. Now let's turn the spotlight onto DBU Group. What does this report say about their strength, their potential weaknesses, and their unique position in this landscape?
Well, I think one of DBU Group's biggest assets is their branding-centric approach, right?
Yes.
Many ECC companies are, they're frustrated with disjointed agency partnerships. So DBU's ability to handle both strategy and creative execution under one roof is a major draw.
It's like they're offering this Like one-stop shop for building a powerful brand.
Precisely.
Uh,
And their hybrid pricing model, which blends retainers with outcome-based contracts,
Interesting.
makes them more attractive than those global giants with their rigid fixed-fee structures.
So they're offering flexibility
They are.
and value in a way that the big players might not be able to match.
Exactly. And let's not forget the advantage of their local teams.
Right.
Having people on the ground who understand GCC regulations
Yeah.
and cultural nuances,
It's so important.
it's invaluable, particularly in a region where, these factors can make or break a project.
So they've got the branding expertise, they've got the flexible approach, and they've got the local knowledge. That sounds like a pretty solid foundation.
I think so.
But let's flip the script for a second. What about the clients themselves? What are the GCC companies demanding from their consulting partners? Like, what are those non-negotiables?
This report shares some really fascinating insights based on interviews with, C-suite executives in the region.
Okay.
And one thing that came through loud and clear was the desire for direct C-suite engagement.
Makes sense.
They don't want to be dealing with junior consultants.
Right.
They want to interact with experienced partners who understand their business at the highest level.
I can definitely see that, right? You're talking about major strategic decisions. You're talking about investments that could shape the future of their companies.
Absolutely.
They want to be confident that they're working with the best of the best.
Absolutely. Another key demand is measurable ROI. These executives are laser focused on results.
Right.
They want to see concrete evidence that their investments in branding are delivering tangible value.
So it's not enough to just talk about, like, the potential benefits.
Nope.
You have to be able to, like, prove that you can deliver the goods.
Exactly. And finally, GCC clients are increasingly looking for consultancies with deep regulatory expertise.
Oh.
Navigating the legal landscape in the GCC, especially in Saudi Arabia, can be very complex.
Right.
And they need a partner who can guide them through the intricacies.
So you need to be more than just, like, a creative whiz
Right.
or a tech guru. You need to, like, understand the rules of the game.
Yeah.
And how to play by them.
Absolutely.
That's a lot to juggle.
It is. But for a company like DBU Group, which seems to be strategically positioned to meet these demands,
Right.
it could be the key to unlocking some really significant opportunities.
Okay, we've got a good grasp of the client's wish list. Now let's zoom in on the map. The report mentions some specific hotspots within the GCC where DBU could really make waves.
Okay, so Saudi Arabia is, of course, the biggest prize, right? It's
Right.
the largest market by far. And with mega projects like NEOM and Qiddiya underway,
Wow.
the demand for expertise and experiential branding and smart city tech integration is enormous.
It's like a giant canvas for innovative consultancies to bait their masterpieces on.
Exactly. Then there's Bahrain, which is quickly becoming a fintech hub.
Right.
And this presents a prime opportunity for DBU to showcase their expertise in blockchain-driven marketing solutions.
It's fascinating how these, like, specific niche markets are emerging within the larger GCC landscape. Right? It's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Absolutely. And then there's Qatar. After the World Cup, they're looking to rebrand their tourism sector and embrace ESG principles,
Right.
creating new avenues for consultancies like DBU.
So it's not just about riding the wave of existing trends.
Right.
It's about anticipating future shifts and being ready to capitalize on them.
Precisely. And here's an interesting twist. The report highlights London as a key market for DBU.
London. Why London? Seems a bit, like, out of left field.
Well, it makes sense when you consider that many GCC companies are expanding into Europe.
Ah, okay.
They need help navigating cross-cultural branding challenges, and that's where DBU's deep understanding of the GCC market could be, invaluable.
So they're not just, like, a regional player.
Yeah.
They have the potential to be a global force.
Yeah.
This is getting exciting. The report even outlines, like, some specific recommendations for how DBU can achieve that.
It does, and I think some of these suggestions are particularly insightful.
Yeah. You want to dive into DBU's potential roadmap for success.
Let's do it.
This is where things get really interesting, wouldn't you say?
I completely agree. Let's unpack those recommendations and see what strategic gems we can uncover. So the report really emphasizes this idea of, DBU Group becoming like the go-to creative technologist in the GCC.
Okay.
It's about, owning that space where cutting-edge tech meets compelling brand storytelling.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does that look like in practice? How do you blend like AI and creativity in a way that really resonates with these GCC clients?
Well, imagine using tools like Deely 3, not just for, pretty pictures,
Right.
but as a core part of, developing a visual identity that truly captures a brand's essence. Or think about using behavioral analytics to create a unique brand resilience index.
Hold on. A brand resilience index. You've got to unpack that one for me.
Mhm.
What is that, and why would a GCC client like care?
Sure, it's essentially a scoring system
Yes.
powered by AI that measures a brand's strength across, various dimensions. You could look at things like, consumer sentiment, market adaptability, even how well a brand is positioned to navigate future disruptions.
So you're taking something that's traditionally been very like subjective
Right.
brand strength and making it measurable, data driven. I
Yeah.
can see why that would appeal to those C-suite executives who are like demanding that ROI.
Exactly. And the report suggests DBU Group could, take this even further.
Right.
Imagine publishing an annual GCC brand innovation report,
Mm.
analyzing, regional campaigns and setting the benchmark for consumer trends in the MENA region.
That's a smart move. You're not just doing the work, you're becoming the authority on the work.
Exactly.
It's like establishing yourself as thought leaders in the field.
Precisely. And all of this, of course, requires top-tier talent.
Right.
The report recommends DBU develop a global GCC Fellows program,
Okay.
rotating creatives between their Dubai and London offices.
So you're creating a truly global workforce with deep regional understanding.
Yeah.
It addresses that client demand for local expertise
Right.
while also exposing your team to different markets and ways of thinking.
Exactly. And of course, let's not forget the tech itself.
Right.
The report specifically mentions investing in cutting-edge AI tools like Falcon 2.0 LLM
Okay.
for Arabic language sentiment analysis.
Okay, now we're talking. That's a game changer for understanding how campaigns are landing with audiences in the GCC.
Absolutely. It's about using AI to not just analyze data,
Right.
but to extract, those nuanced insights that can drive, real strategic decisions.
This is all started to sound very impressive, but it's a competitive market out there.
Right.
What are some of the challenges that DBU Group might face in trying to implement these recommendations?
Well, one challenge, is managing those cultural nuances we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Even with local teams, there's always the risk of, misinterpreting signals.
Yeah.
Like or failing to fully grasp the sensitivities of the GCC market.
Right. It's one thing to like have people on the ground,
Right.
but it's another to truly understand the cultural context
Yeah.
and build that genuine trust.
Exactly. And then there's the regulatory landscape.
Right.
The GCC has its own unique set of rules, especially in Saudi Arabia, where the legal environment is constantly evolving.
Sure.
Staying on top of that is crucial.
It sounds like DBU Group will need to be very agile, very adaptable to navigate these complexities.
Absolutely. And let's not forget the technological side of things.
Right.
The AI landscape is constantly evolving. What's cutting edge today might be outdated tomorrow.
Sure.
DBU will need to be, constantly learning, adapting, and investing in the latest tools and technologies.
It's like a never-ending race to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
But let's talk about those strategic partnerships the report recommends. Specifically, working with regional AI leaders like G42 and the Saudi Data and AI Authority, SDAIA. What do you make of that?
I think it's a brilliant move.
Right.
It opens doors to those lucrative government contracts and positions DBU at the forefront of, digital transformation initiatives in the GCC.
Yeah.
It's not just about competing.
Right.
It's about collaborating with the right players to unlock even bigger opportunities.
It's like they're building an ecosystem of expertise, leveraging each other's strengths to create something truly powerful.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of sponsoring those MBA programs and brand analytics at institutions like King Fed University.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a long-term play, but a very smart one.
It's about investing in the future of the industry, creating a pipeline of talent that's, specifically trained for the unique demands of the GCC market.
Right.
And it strengthens their ties with, key stakeholders in the region.
So they're not just extracting value from the market, they're adding value to it.
Exactly.
That's a powerful message.
It is, but let's not sugarcoat things.
Right.
DBU will face stiff competition.
Yeah, of course.
Those global giants aren't going to just roll over,
Right.
They have deep pockets and a long history in the region.
So how can DBU differentiate themselves? What's their unique selling proposition in this crowded marketplace?
It goes back to that creative technologist identity.
Right.
They need to become synonymous with cutting-edge AI-powered branding solutions that are,
Yeah.
tailored specifically for the GCC market.
Yeah.
They need to showcase those, unique capabilities like the Brand Resilience Index, those Arabic language sentiment analysis tools,
Right.
and demonstrate that they can, deliver tangible results.
It's about proving their value, not just talking about it. But beyond the tech, beyond the strategy, what's the X factor that'll make them stand out?
I think it's about authenticity.
Okay.
DBU needs to demonstrate a genuine understanding of the GCC's culture, its aspirations, its unique challenges,
Yeah.
They need to build relationships based on trust, transparency, and a shared vision for the future.
It's about being more than just like a consultant.
Right.
It's about being a partner, a collaborator, a trusted advisor.
Exactly. And that's something that those global giants with their, standardized approaches and one-size-fits-all solutions often struggle to achieve.
Right.
It's DBU's opportunity to seize the moment.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about DBU Group's strengths, their potential challenges, and even their roadmap for success.
Yeah.
But what does this all mean? What's the big takeaway for our listener?
Well, the big takeaway is that DBU Group has a real shot at becoming a major player in the GCC consulting market.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're strategically positioned, they have a clear vision,
Right.
and they're willing to embrace innovation.
Yeah.
But success won't be handed to them, right?
Right.
They'll need to be, agile, adaptable, and relentlessly focused on delivering value to their clients.
It's a reminder that even in a booming market, success requires more than just, good ideas. It requires execution, perseverance, and a deep understanding of the forces at play.
Absolutely. And it's important to acknowledge that, there are risks involved.
Sure.
The GCC is a complex region,
Right.
both politically and economically.
Yeah.
DBU Group will need to navigate those complexities carefully and be prepared for the unexpected.
That's a great point. It's not all sunshine and roses. There are potential pitfalls along the way. But let's talk about the potential rewards for a second.
Okay.
If DBU Group does manage to achieve their ambitious goals, what kind of impact could they have? The potential impact is significant,
Right.
They could help shape the future of branding in the GCC,
Right.
influencing how these nations project themselves on the global stage.
Yeah.
They could help GCC companies become, more competitive, more innovative, more responsive to the needs of their customers.
Right.
And they could contribute to the economic diversification and technological advancement of the region as a whole.
It's about more than just building successful brands.
Yeah.
It's about contributing to the growth and development of a region that's undergoing a profound transformation.
Exactly. And that brings us to a question that I find particularly intriguing as DBU Group integrates AI, more deeply into their operations.
Right.
What are the ethical considerations they need to be, mindful of?
That's a great question, and one that we can't ignore, right?
Right.
The power of AI comes with responsibility.
It does.
So how can DBU Group ensure that they're using these tools ethically and responsibly?
Well, I think one key principle is transparency.
Okay.
DBU needs to be open about how they're using AI,
Right.
what data they're collecting,
That's right.
and how they're using that data to inform their strategies. They need to avoid, black box algorithms that are impossible to understand or explain.
It's about building trust with their clients.
Exactly.
And the public
Yeah.
people need to know that their data is being used responsibly.
Right.
And that their interests are being protected.
Absolutely. Another important consideration is fairness.
Okay.
DBU needs to ensure that their AI algorithms are free from bias and
Yeah.
that they're not, perpetuating existing inequalities.
Right.
They need to be mindful of the potential for their technology to be used in ways that could, harm or disadvantage certain groups of people.
That's a critical point. AI has the potential to be a powerful force for good,
Yeah.
but it can also be used in ways that are discriminatory or harmful.
Yeah.
DBU needs to be like vigilant in guarding against those potential pitfalls.
Absolutely. And they need to be proactive in seeking out, diverse perspective and engaging in open dialogue about the ethical implications of their work.
Yeah.
They need to be willing to listen, learn, and adapt as the field of AI ethics continues to evolve.
It's a complex and challenging landscape,
It is.
but one that DBU Group can't afford to ignore.
No,
The stakes are simply too high.
I completely agree. And I think this is an area where DBU has an opportunity to be a leader,
Yeah.
to set a standard for ethical AI use in the GCC consulting market.
Right.
They have a chance to demonstrate that innovation and responsibility can go hand in hand.
That's a powerful message. And it brings us to like the heart of what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're not just talking about, business strategy or technological advancements. We're talking about the potential for DBU Group to make a real difference in the world.
That's exactly right. And that's what makes their journey so compelling to watch, They're not just chasing profits, they're chasing a vision for a better future,
Right.
a future where the GCC is recognized for its creativity, its innovation, and its commitment to ethical leadership.
This has been an incredibly insightful conversation,
It has.
but I'm sure our listener is eager to hear more about the specific challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for DBU Group.
Yeah,
Shall we delve into those in the final part of this deep dive?
absolutely. Let's explore those uncharted territories and see what insights we can uncover.
It's really striking how DBU Group's journey like mirrors the GCC's own transformation, right? Both are embracing ambition, technology, and this like desire to make a global impact.
It's a powerful parallel, and as DBU ventures further into this landscape, they're going to face some pretty specific challenges. We've touched on a few already, like navigating those cultural nuances
Right.
and that evolving regulatory environment.
Yeah.
But there are others, worth considering.
Okay, let's unpack those. What else should DBU Group be prepared for as they
Yeah.
strive to achieve their goals?
Well, one challenge that comes to mind is managing client expectations, right?
Okay.
The GCC is known for its grand visions and desire for rapid results.
Yeah.
DBU will need to strike a balance between ambition and pragmatism,
Right.
ensuring they can, deliver on their promises without over-promising.
It's about being honest about what's achievable while still like pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Exactly.
Right? No one wants a consultant who shies away from a challenge.
Yeah.
No one wants to be let down by unrealistic expectations either.
Exactly. And we can't ignore the potential for economic volatility.
Sure. Right.
The GCC is still heavily reliant on oil and gas.
Yeah.
And fluctuations in global energy prices could impact, investment in consulting services.
Right.
DBU will need to be prepared to weather those storms
Yeah.
and adapt their strategies accordingly.
That resilience, that ability to like pivot and adjust
Yeah.
is going to be crucial in a market as dynamic as the GCC.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what about the human element? We've talked about the importance of talent.
Yeah.
But how can DBU Group like attract and retain the best and the brightest in this competitive landscape?
It's going to be a tough battle for talent.
Yeah.
DBU will need to offer competitive compensation packages, of course,
Right.
but it goes beyond just the paycheck. They need to create a work environment that fosters, innovation, collaboration, and growth.
Yeah.
I think professional development opportunities, mentorship programs,
Yeah.
and a culture that values, diversity and inclusion.
It's about creating a space where people feel valued, challenged, and empowered to do their best work.
Exactly.
You want people lining up to be part of the DBU team, right?
Absolutely. And they'll need to be mindful of the geopolitical landscape. The GCC is a complex region with its own set of political dynamics.
Sure.
DBU will need to navigate these sensitivities carefully, building bridges
Yeah.
and fostering a sense of trust and understanding across, different cultures and perspectives.
It's about being like diplomatic, building relationships, and understanding that business is never conducted in a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
It's always intertwined with the political and social realities of the region.
Precisely. And
Yeah.
as we've discussed, the ethical use of AI is paramount. DBU will need to establish clear guidelines and frameworks for responsible AI development and deployment.
Yeah.
It's not just about avoiding harm.
Right.
It's about proactively using AI to promote positive social impact.
So transparency, fairness, and
Yeah.
and a commitment to using AI for good are non-negotiable.
Absolutely.
But with all these challenges on the table, it begs the question: what does success actually look like for DBU Group?
That's a great question, and I think it's one that DBU will need to, define for themselves.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I believe success will be measured by the impact they have,
Yep.
both on their clients and on the GCC as a whole.
So it's not just about like revenue or market share.
Mhm.
It's about making a meaningful contribution to the region's transformation.
Exactly. Imagine a future where GCC brands are globally recognized for their innovation, their creativity, their ability to connect with audiences on a deeper level.
Yeah.
DBU could play a pivotal role in making that vision a reality.
It's an inspiring thought.
It is.
And it brings us back to that core idea of DBU Group is the creative technologist, right? The company that bridges the gap between cutting edge technology and compelling brand storytelling.
It's a powerful position to occupy, and one that comes with immense responsibility.
Right.
DBU will need to use their influence wisely,
Yeah.
always striving to create value, to innovate, and to act with integrity.
It's a reminder that success in the GCC is not just about winning contracts.
Right.
It's about earning trust, building partnerships, and contributing to the long-term well-being of the region.
Well said. And as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I think it's worth leaving our listener with a final thought.
Okay.
The GCC is not just a market. It's a tapestry of cultures, aspirations, and dreams. DBU Group's success will ultimately depend on their ability to understand and connect with that human element, to weave their own story into the fabric of this extraordinary region.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it leaves us with a sense of anticipation, a curiosity to see how DBU Group's story unfolds and what impact they'll have on the GCC's ongoing transformation.
Yeah.
So to our listener, we encourage you to keep watching, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the complexities of this fascinating region. Until next time.